Greetings and welcome back to the channel, and today I'm going to be talking about Pokemon evolutions that I feel are completely unnecessary and never should have been added. Now, usually whenever it comes to Pokemon evolutions, the Pokemon evolutions themselves are usually there to make the Pokemon stronger and more viable, more stronger, and better off. However, there are some Pokemon who have been standalones for quite some time, but then they eventually gain evolutions. And in my opinion, I feel like they should only gain an evolution if either the fans believe that they deserve an evolution, or if it's good enough to where people will actually use it in battle, or if it's a Pokemon that wasn't very popular, but then giving it an evolution will make it more popular. Today, this video is going to be me discussing Pokemon that I feel should not have been given an evolution, and these Pokemon have not gained any popularity due to these evolutions, in my opinion. So today, I'm going to be talking about Pokemon that I feel do not deserve evolutions, and we're going to be starting off with the most recent one in Generation 9. That being Dunsparce. I have no idea why people were clamoring for this Pokemon to gain an evolution. It blows my mind how people really felt this shit, weak Pokemon like Dunsparce should have had an evolution. It blows my mind why people felt, yeah, Dunsparce absolutely should be given an evolution in Generation 9. Now, there were some evolutions in Generation 9 I was okay with, like Primeape becoming Annihilape, because it made Primeape better. I used an Annihilape in my main playthrough in my Pokemon Violet version, and it's one of my favorites. So Annihilape overall is one of my favorites. There are some other Gen 9 ones that were actually decent, but like Girafarig becoming Farigiraf. But Dunsparce, to me, is by far the worst new evolution I have ever seen. It feels like Game Freak only just added this just to shut the community up who were begging for Dunsparce to gain an evolution. Unlike Farfetch'd when it gained its evolution by evolving into Sirfetch'd, it was actually a pretty good Pokemon. And people wanted that thing to evolve because everyone wanted it to be better, and it was better. I can't say the same about Dunsparce. Dunsparce, after gaining the evolution, though there were people out there that were happy it got an evolution, a lot of people were disappointed with how it turned out. Basically, it's just a bigger Dunsparce. It's just basically a bigger Dunsparce, just with a longer. That's what Dunsparce is. It's just a Dunsparce, but just longer, with just extra layers. Like there's two forms. There's two forms of Dunsparce, which is the name of the evolution. By far the most pointless and the absolute worst evolution. New evolution, the most undeserving Pokemon in the entire Pokemon games. Well, what did Dunsparce do? What did Dunsparce do to deserve an evolution? Just because the community wanted it to gain an evolution? It's useless. Even with its new evolutions, I still haven't seen people talk about how great the Dunsparce is. So to me, it tells me that people were clamoring for its evolution, and even though people wanted it to be a cool evolution, and look, if it looked cool, and it was actually good, and actually worth having, then sure, Dunsparce wouldn't be on this list, and I wouldn't be saying how stupid its evolution is. But the fact it is just a Dunsparce, just bigger and longer, tells me that Game Freak did not give a flying nimbus about Dunsparce and just only made it just to shut the people up who have been clamoring for it. And they're like, we're not going to change it. We're just going to make it bigger. We're just going to make it a bigger Dunsparce, and it's just going to be a bit longer. There you go, community. You got your Dunsparce evolution, and I hope it was absolutely worth it. Because to me, Dunsparce never should not have given an evolution. It did not deserve one, in my opinion. It was just only given one because the community wanted it to have one. And again, I feel like Pokemon should only gain evolutions if they deserve one. And in my opinion, Dunsparce did not deserve an evolution. Next we're going to be talking about babies. Some baby Pokemon that I feel like were absolutely unnecessary to add. Now, not all of them are terrible, like Togepi and Magby, Electakid, Pichu, and even Riolu. Obviously, some baby Pokemon are perfectly fine and acceptable, but these ones I put on this list, I feel like are absolutely unnecessary and they didn't need to be added. We've got Smoochum, the baby evolution for Jynx. Nobody likes Jynx. There are people out there that do not like Jynx, and me personally, I don't like Jynx either. It's a creepy, disturbing Pokemon, but Jynx is just not great of a Pokemon. A Psychic Ice type? Sure, that as a typing concept sounds really good, but Jynx is just a terrible Pokemon. It's just not worth it. It's a bad Pokemon, and it's just a bad Pokemon, and giving it a baby form does not make it better. Smoochum, the baby evolution of Jynx, is just a completely waste of time. It's a complete waste of time, and it didn't need to be added. Jynx would have just been better off being a standalone Pokemon. I was going to include Mime Jr. as well. I was going to include Mime Jr., but Galarian Mr. Mime and Mr. Rime, the evolutions for Galarian Mr. Mime, were also included in Scarlet and Violet. Though I didn't hate those, but Mime Jr. is basically the baby form of the regular Mr. Mime, and the only reason why I'm letting this slide is because Mime Jr. was in the anime. This Mime Jr. was one of James's Pokemon from Team Rocket, so I'm letting it slide for that particular reason. Though this one, I am not letting it slide because there was absolutely no reason to include a baby form for this Pokemon. This is another Pokemon that was quite popular in the anime. Because again, due to Team Rocket. No, I'm not talking about Wobbuffet, even though Why Not is really useless and an evolution that is completely pointless, but it's not on this list. But I will agree, Why Not is also another pretty shitty and waste of space. But the Pokemon I am talking about is Chingling. Now, in the Hoenn sagas, James has a Pokemon named Chimecho. And it did not evolve. It was just a standalone Pokemon. But until Generation 4, for some weird unknown reason, they just decided to give it an evolution. They decided to give it a baby form named Chingling. Why? Was this really necessary? To include? Chingling did not need to exist. Chingling didn't need to exist. Chimecho was better off being a standalone Pokemon. Though Chimecho was only found in one place in the entire Hoenn games, which is Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, Omega, Ruby, Alpha, Sapphire, basically being the very top of Mount Pyre, Chimecho did not need an evolution. Though people have grown to accept these over the years, this is just a Pokemon that I just felt like was not needed at all. Chingling is just not a Pokemon that I don't think is necessary. Now, there are other Pokemon from Gen 4 that got new evolutions, like Tangela and Tangela getting Tangrowth and all that other stuff. But I can accept those because I think some of those Pokemon, could have benefited from it. But the other baby Pokemon I'm going to be talking about is Munchlax becoming Snorlax. Now, Snorlax is a great Pokemon, but bear with me here. But Snorlax never needed an evolution. It never needed a baby form. It never needed anything. It never needed a baby. The only reason why this thing exists was because in the Hoenn Saga, near the end of the Hoenn Saga, May catches a Munchlax. She ends up having one in her team. So Munchlax is sort of well known in the anime because May had one, but that's the only reason why I feel like Munchlax was included, because of the anime and May having one. But overall, to me, Munchlax was just not needed. And the way to evolve Munchlax into Snorlax is absolutely absurd. It's just better off you just catch a Snorlax. Just play the Gen 1 games. Just play the Gen 1 games, or just play X and Y and catch yourself a Snorlax. You're way better off just catching a Snorlax instead of just grinding it as a Munchlax. I just feel like that is definitely an evolution that was not needed. Two more Gen 9 evolutions I feel like were completely unnecessary. This one is Applin evolving into Dipplin and Hydreigon. Now, I know some people may be thinking, whoa, why are you talking bad about Dipplin and Hydreigon for? Or I probably spelt it wrong. Hydreigon is the evolution of Dino. I might have completely spelt it wrong, or I might have just said the name wrong, but whichever. The Dipplin and then its final evolution, Hydapple or something, I think it's called. But regardless, it's the evolution of Dipplin. It's the evolution of Dipplin when you use Dragon's Cheer to evolve it. Now, don't get me wrong, the Pokemon's cool. The final evolution, it is cool. I think that's cool. But I just don't think Dipplin and Hydrapple, I think that's how you say it, Hydrapple is really needed. I don't think they were needed. I don't think Applin needed 5 evolutions. Applin basically evolves 5 times. You can get it. It's Applin, Flapple, and the other one I've forgotten its name. I've forgotten its name. Then Dripplin, and then Hydrapple. Appletun, that's the other one. Appletun. So basically, this Pokemon evolves 5 times. And I think giving it 5 evolutions is a bit unnecessary. Sure, it's fine for Eevee, because Eevee is the evolution Pokemon, but I think giving Applin 5 evolutions is way too many and very, very unnecessary. That's the main reason why I'm including them on this list. Not because I don't hate them, it's because I think it's unnecessary to give one Pokemon 5 evolutions. That's the reason why it's on here. Not because I don't like them, it's because I feel like it's just unnecessary to include them, and having 5 evolutions, I feel, is way too many. The other one is Duraludon, getting its recent evolution. Ankylosaur. I'm not sure how you pronounce it, probably butchered it. But this is the one I recently caught, if you saw my shiny video, where I caught a Duraludon and then evolved it into a shiny. I don't know why this thing needed an evolution. Duraludon was the ace Pokemon of the Galar Gym Leader Raihan. And I don't see the reason of giving it an evolution. If you were I'm just going to say this right now. If you wanted Duraludon to evolve, you should have just had it evolve in Sword and Shield. That's all I'm saying. If you wanted it to evolve, you should have just given it an evolution in Sword and Shield. There's no reason, there's no excuse to just make it a standalone Pokemon in Gen 8, but then give it an evolution in Gen 9. If you wanted it to evolve, you should have just given it an evolution in Gen 8. That's really all I'm saying, because I think this evolution is very, very pointless. I would have been okay with this evolution if it happened in Gen 8, but I feel like this evolution is just so random, and it really should not have been a thing. It shouldn't have been a thing, but it is, so very, very pointless. Another evolution that I think is quite pointless, and maybe this one, maybe some people may agree with, or maybe not agree with, but Rhydon evolving into Rhyperior. I am not a fan of Rhyperior, I never really have been, and I don't know why they gave Rhydon an evolution, where Rhydon was basically the original Pokemon that was created, the first Pokemon ever drawn, which is what a lot of people have said over the years, but I just think it's I just don't think it's very viable. I don't see a lot of people saying it's a good Pokemon. Like, obviously it's grown on me over the years, but the thing that I hate about a lot of the newer evolutions that they included in Gen 4, like Electivire, Magmortar, Dusknoir, and many other the newer evolutions, the methods to evolve them is just so darn pointless. Like, the 4 Pokemon I just mentioned, you need items to evolve them. You need a Ripped Claw for Dusclops for it to be a Dusknoir. You need a Protector for Rhydon for it to be a Rhyperior. You need a Magnezire for Magma, and an Electivire for Electabuzz, and all of them need to be traded to get these evolutions. Look, if they were just items that you could just use and evolve the Pokemon, that wouldn't be an issue. Let's look at Magnezone, for example. In Gen 4, when Magnezone was introduced, they added Magnezone, and they said the only way you could evolve it was getting it to level up Magneton at Mount Coronet. Then when they introduced it in Gen 5, they had to change it to level up Magneton at the Chargestone Cave for it to evolve into Magnezone. But as they continued to add Magnemite into the games, they had to keep changing the method to evolve it, because the method to evolve it couldn't be required because it was in a different region. So eventually they just gave up and just said, right, evolve it by Thunderstone. Give it a Thunderstone and you'll get yourself a Magnezone. They made it easier by just adding by making Magneton evolve by Thunderstone. Couldn't they just done the same thing here? Couldn't they just done the same thing here with these 4 Pokemon, like Dusclops by a Duckstone, Electabuzz by Thunderstone, Magmortar by Firestone, and maybe just have the Protector as an item instead of it being a held item? Or just don't have Rhydon evolve at all? But yeah, like, the methods to evolve these Pokemon are just really tedious, and I just think it's not worth it. And Rhyperior, I feel like it was just an evolution I felt was not needed. 2 more. I'm really bashing on Gen 4 here with a lot of its evolutions, but Gen 4 was the game that really introduced more evolutions. The other evolutions that they introduced was Nosepass, evolving it into Probopass. Now, Nosepass was a Gen 3 Pokemon, and this is the exact same thing I have for Duraludon. If you wanted Nosepass to evolve, you should have just included the evolution in Gen 3, which that was the game that Nosepass was introduced in, Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald. As I said, if you're just going to include these evolutions, just put them in the generation they're in, instead of just adding them later. I just think it just wastes so much time. I think it's just a valuable waste of time, if you ask me. I think it's just a waste of time and just completely unnecessary. Two more. We're gonna go over two more. The next one we're gonna be going over is Bisharp evolving into King Gambit. Now, King Gambit is the new one added in Gen 9, and I'm just gonna say, Bisharp didn't need this evolution. We were so used to Bisharp, Pawniard, and Bisharp. They were introduced in Gen 5. We were used to these guys being in the games from Gen 6, 7, and 8. We were used to seeing them for this long. But then, for some reason, they decided to add an evolution for Bisharp by making it King Gambit. Now, if you always wanted King Gambit as a Pokemon, should have just included it in Gen 5 and make it a 3-stage evolution. But the problem is that Bisharp evolves way too damn late. If you want a Bisharp in Gen 5, you have to catch a Pawniard, which usually is caught roughly around the 30s, and it evolves at like around about 52, I think. So it takes way too damn long to get a Bisharp. They could have lowered the level down, but I don't know. But they just included they just made Bisharp evolution very much more annoying. And the evolution of Bisharp is even more annoying that you need an item for it. You need an item to evolve the Bisharp into a King Gambit anyway. So Pawniard is basically the most annoying Pokemon to evolve, because you needed to evolve it at level 52 for a Bisharp, and then give it an item to evolve it. Very, very annoying. Next one we're going to be talking about is an evolution that I think is very, very random. This is... I'm not sure if we can count this as a branched evolution, but branched evolutions are usually Pokemon like, for example, Poliwhirl can either become a Politoed or a Poliwrath. Or Ralts' middle stage, Curlier, can either become a Gardevoir or a Gallade. Now, I don't know if this one counts as a branched evolution, but Nincada, when you evolve Nincada, this is a Pokemon introduced in Gen 3, the Ruby and Sapphire and Emerald games. When Nincada evolves into Ninjask, for some weird reason, if you have an extra space added, if you have an extra space in your team, evolving Nincada into Ninjask will add Shedinja to your team. Shedinja to me is very, very pointless, and the reason why it's pointless is because it has 1 HP. No, I didn't make that up. It's got 1 HP. And leveling it up doesn't make it stronger. Leveling it up doesn't make it stronger. The whole gimmick of Shedinja is that the only way to kill it is to hit it with moves that it's weak to. So it's basically a bug ghost type. Such an easy Pokemon to kill, and it's a complete waste of time. There's no reason for this thing to be added, because it has an ability called Wonder Guard. If it's not hit by moves that is weak to it, it will never die. And Shedinja is pretty useless, and I don't see the reason of it existing, and it's just terrible. I don't know why. And by the way, this was not added. This was not an added evolution. This is a part of the evolution line of Nincada. So I feel like this is a Pokemon that really should not have needed to be in there. It should have just been Nincada to Ninjask, and that's it. The last Pokemon we're going to be talking about today is one of the other more useless evolutions that hasn't really given it any more popularity, which again, as I said, evolutions are supposed to make the Pokemon more popular, and if they truly deserve it, and this is another Pokemon I felt that did not deserve it. Once again with Generation 4, Lickitung, evolving into Licky Licky. Yes, that's the name of the Pokemon, Licky Licky. How do you evolve a Lickitung into Licky Licky? Well, make sure your Lickitung knows rollouts. Yep. Or was it cut? It was one of the two. But all I'm saying is, it's Licky Licky is not a fan favorite. It is by far one of the worst evolutions. This should never have been added. Never. This never should have been included. This was not an evolution that really should have been added, but it was included, so it's just terrible. It's just terrible. No one likes it, and Lickitung has now gotten less popular because of it. Again, not all Pokemon need to evolve. That's the moral compass of this video. Not all Pokemon need to evolve. Some Pokemon can be fine as standalone Pokemon. Some Pokemon are fine as standalones, but majority of the time, most Pokemon do not need evolutions. So that is the end of this video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. Hit that thumbs up. Be sure to let me know down below your thoughts on Pokemon that you felt did not deserve evolutions. That you felt did not deserve an evolution. And I'll see you all next time.